You know, we hear so much about AI completely transforming medicine, but it raises a huge question. Who should be in the driver's seat? Is it the tech companies, the engineers, or is there a critical role that really only doctors can fill? Today, we're going to dig into a really compelling argument that physicians must be the ones to lead this AI revolution.
And this idea comes from Dr. Brian Lawenda, a radiation oncologist who basically argues that the old way of thinking just won't cut it anymore. He puts it this way: preservation alone is no longer a viable strategy. See, for decades, the medical community's approach to new tech was, well, kind of defensive. Protecting their roles. But with AI, that defensive crouch, it's a recipe for disaster.
And that really frames the whole issue, doesn't it? I mean, if the clinical experts, the people who actually treat patients day in and day out, don't step up and lead AI development, then who will? Data scientists who've never set foot in a clinic? Administrators who are just focused on workflow efficiency? The answer to that question is going to shape the future of healthcare for every single one of us.
So let's unpack this strategy of preservation for a second. For a long time, physicians have seen themselves as guardians, right? Protecting their expert judgment and their patient relationships from being totally overridden by technology. It was a strategy of holding the line. But AI, well, AI isn't just another tool. It's a fundamental shift in how everything works.
And here's the thing that's so easy to miss. AI isn't some far-off sci-fi concept. It is here. It's happening right now. It's being built into the systems we use today. The algorithms being trained, the workflows being designed as we speak. They are going to define the entire environment of patient care for decades. The future is being built in the present, which means sitting back and waiting to react, that's just not an option anymore.
Okay, so if preservation is out, what does leadership actually look like? Well, the first, and you could argue the most important task, is all about leading on data integrity. This is the bedrock. Everything else is built on top of this.
So what in the world is data integrity? It's actually pretty simple. It's just the assurance that data is accurate and consistent through its entire life. It's about being able to trust the information from the moment it's collected to the moment an AI uses it to make a recommendation. Simple as that.
Here's a good way to think about it. Imagine you're building a house. The data is your foundation. Now, you can have the most brilliant architect in the world, the most advanced building materials, but if that foundation is cracked, or weak, or uneven, the entire house is unsafe, period. It's the exact same thing with AI. Flawed data will always lead to a flawed and potentially dangerous AI.
Which brings us right back to our main point. Why are physicians so essential in this process? Why can't we just leave all the data management stuff to the data scientists?
Because clinical experts understand the one thing that data, by itself, can never, ever capture: context. They know how a patient's outcome is truly defined, way beyond what a simple number on a chart says. They see how individual patient differences can dramatically change results in ways the data doesn't even record. They get where messy, real-world practice diverges from the clean, textbook protocols. And maybe most important of all, they have the gut feeling, the intuition to spot when an AI has learned the wrong lesson, even from data that looks technically correct.
So how do they actually do this in practice? Well, it really happens in 3 key stages. First, they have to shape the data collection itself, deciding what critical information gets included or left out from the very beginning. Then, they guide the labeling process, making sure clinical records aren't just complete, but are actually meaningful. And finally, they are the only ones who can truly evaluate the AI models, using their real-world experience to stress test an algorithm's performance before it ever gets anywhere near a patient. Okay, so you've got the data, right? But that's only half the battle. Let's move on to the second critical task, which is just as important: drawing a really clear line between the human and the machine.
This is where you see the perfect partnership start to take shape. The algorithm's role? It's to analyze massive amounts of data, recommend actions, and help manage workflow. It's an incredibly powerful assistant. But the physician's role? That's to make the final call, to interpret that recommendation in the context of one specific patient, and, this is the big one, to take ultimate responsibility for the outcome.
This quote just nails it. The role of the physician isn't just to validate the model. It's to take responsibility for what happens next. The AI can give you a probability. The physician provides the care. The AI can highlight a risk. The physician is the one who navigates it with the patient. That is a fundamentally human responsibility.
So, what does all this mean for the doctor of the future? Well, it means their job isn't going away, not by a long shot. but it is evolving into something that might be even more demanding and more sophisticated.
In this new AI era, the core responsibilities of a physician really start to shift. It's less about data entry and much more about data interpretation. It's about being able to interpret and actively challenge an AI's output, not just blindly accept it. It's about understanding the potential sources of bias or error that might be baked into the system. It's about knowing exactly when to step in and override the machine with human judgment. And finally, it's about explaining to patients and the whole care team how this tech is being used to support, not replace their care.
All right, let's pull all this together. The argument here isn't about resisting technology. It's really about proactively shaping it to make sure it serves our highest values in medicine.
So, the takeaway is crystal clear. Standing on the sidelines, being passive, that's a losing strategy. It just is. For AI to be a tool that's safe, that's effective, and that truly benefits patients, that active leadership absolutely has to come from the clinical experts on the front lines, the ones shaping the data and defining that crucial partnership between human and machine.
And that leaves us with a really fascinating question to think about for the future. As the machines get undeniably smarter at processing data and spotting patterns, what then becomes the single most important human skill in the practice of medicine? Yeah, that's something worth thinking about.